Good morning, Year 2. So our fact of the day today is 3 times 4 equals 12, or 3 sets of 4 are 12, which is what the first picture shows you. And the bottom picture shows you 4 sets of 3 equals 12. But remember, now we've been learning about arrays, I want you to start thinking about all these facts as an array. So if you were doing 4 times 3, there was the one we did yesterday, 3 threes. The array would look like that, because that helps you when you're doing your inverse facts, when you're doing division. So you've got 12 altogether. If you divide that into threes, you get 4 threes. So if we look at the picture, there's a 3, there's a 3, and there's another 3. And if you divide the 12 into fours, you get 3 fours, which would be chopping it this way. Now to make a mega fact, let's do 3 40s. So that would be 40, add 40, add 40. And that would be 120. So 43s would be 122. If you swap the 0, if you had 4 times 30, it would be 120. Let's see if we can prove that using a column. So 30, it's a lot of 30s, 30 and 30. You can just fit it in. So there are only 0 ones, so we don't have to worry about the ones at all. We just have to count the 3s. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And if you write 12 there, you can see how it makes 120. And if we divided one of those, let's divide 120 into 40s, there would be 3. If we divided it into 30s, there would be 4. So it's just using the same digits. So when you write those in your book, maybe use the squares to draw the array. So rather than drawing the numicon, draw the array, just like we have down there. Today we're starting a new topic in maths, and our new topic is all about measuring. So have a think about what pictures that puts in your head. When you see the word measuring, what do you think of? What things do we measure? So you might think we measure how tall things are, or maybe we measure how long things are. We also measure how heavy things are. And one you may not be so sure about is we measure how full things are. We also measure time. We're not going to do that in this unit, we're going to do that later on, but we also measure time. Have a look at these pictures. They are all to do with different types of measuring. Can you guess what you'd measure with each one? So here we've got a tape measure. So that might be measuring someone to fit clothes, because it's a flexible measure so it can go round you. This is actually a very modern set of scales. You measure how heavy things are. That's another more familiar set of scales that you might see in the kitchen when you're measuring ingredients, if you're making something. We've got 2 different measuring jugs, and they're for measuring capacity. So when you fill them up with a liquid, it measures how much liquid you have. I wonder if you know what that one there is. That's for measuring temperature, how hot it is or how cold it is. And then we've got a ruler, which you should be familiar with, for measuring length. We've got a tape measure, which is just another form of ruler, really. It's just a longer form of ruler. This one here, you might recognise as well, that's also for measuring temperature. It's for measuring our temperature, a bit like the one that we were pointing at people's heads when they came in the morning. And then finally, we've got these little measuring spoons, because when you measure for recipes, sometimes you need a very tiny amount, and that's described as a half teaspoon or a whole teaspoon or a tablespoon. Today, we're going to think about 4 different types of measuring. So we're going to think about temperature, which is when you measure how hot or how cold something is. Length, and that can be how long something is, how high something is, how tall, how wide. Mass, and that's another word for weight, how heavy something is. And capacity, which is to do with how full something is. So I've got similar pictures to the ones we've just seen, and I'm just going to sort them into the right places. So we've got a thermometer here, and that's for measuring temperature. We've got a ruler, that measures length. We've got a measuring jug, that measures capacity. And we've got two sets of scales. Those sort of scales you can stand on, so they can measure the weight of people. And this one's more for measuring ingredients, the weight of them. Or sometimes they weigh babies, don't they, in scales like that. And that's another type of tape measure for measuring length. So there are lots of different words associated with measuring, and that's why it can get a bit confusing. There's two whole different systems for measuring, and you actually, in our country, you still hear both. So you still hear the old system and the new system. We're going to use the new system. So these are the words, these red words are the ones that you are going to be sorting onto your sheet. You've got a sheet in your book, that's in your work pack, that's got these 4 words: temperature, length, mass and capacity. And you're going to be sorting these red words into the right place. So grams is the first one. Grams is a measurement of weight or mass. So kilograms is also a measurement of weight and mass. Grams are the small ones and kilograms are the bigger ones. Degrees. Now degrees measure temperature. We talk about degrees, and there's the other one, Celsius. And that tells you how hot or cold it is. Litres, I wonder if you know where that one goes. That's what you have on the side of a measuring jug. Measuring jugs are very confusing because they have lots of different measurements, but we're going to just be looking at litres. Millilitres, they're the smaller version of litres. And then we've got metres, which is a measurement of length. And we've got centimetres, which is a smaller measurement of length. So on your sheet in your book, I want you to make sure you've written those red words. When we write these measurements, because some of these words are quite long, there are little abbreviations we use instead of writing the whole word. So for metres, it's just a little m. So if I draw a little equals sign, metres equals m. Centimetres, you might have seen this one before, is cm. Grams, I think you can guess that one, is a g. And kilograms is a kg. And then we've got litres equals L. Just move that one across a bit. And millilitres equals ML. Now degrees Celsius is like a little circle and then a C, a circle and a C. And some of these we're going to be looking at how many of one equals the other. So 1 metre is actually made up of 100 centimetres. We're going to be looking at that later on in the week. And then 1 kilogram, so 1 kg, is the same as 1,000 grams. And that's why it gets confusing, because it's not the same as the metres and centimetres. And 1 litre is the same as 1,000 millilitres. So on your sheet, you can also write down those. So the next bit is the fun bit, though sometimes people do find this a bit tricky. You've got a sheet of photos. Now they might not be exactly the same as the ones I've got, they're sort of tiny photos. And your job now is to cut them out, you don't have to use all of them, and find examples of each type of measurement. So there's like a big bottle of Coke. What do you think you'd measure that in? How would you measure how much Coke is in there? We've already seen that. Hopefully you'll be able to guess that one. Those figures along the side there are in degrees Celsius. That's another one that's quite easy. What would you measure that in? That's a packet of flour. How would you measure flour? It's a swimming pool. How do they measure swimming pools? They measure 2 things, don't they? How deep it is and how far it is. You see the measurements on the side of the pool, but what are the measurements in? What type of measurement is it? And that looks like a jumping competition. So what would they be measuring? I think you can see what he's measuring. We've got one of those in the classroom, haven't we? And they're measuring how deep the snow is there, but what type of measurement is it? We've got a thing of orange juice, another one of those, got a few of those. What about shampoo? If you look on a shampoo bottle somewhere, there should be a measurement because it's the law that they have to tell you how much is inside. But what sort of measurement is it? And what do you measure on a cooker? There's a display on ovens and cookers, but what is it measuring? And someone's filling up their car. What do you measure that in? How do you measure petrol? If you look on your cereal packets, if you look somewhere, there will be a measurement. So look out for those little letters. Is it going to be an L? Is it going to be a CM? Is it going to be a G? And there's a baby on some scales. Oh, I didn't know what that is, but I've just worked it out. It's where you get all those sweets at the cinema and then they have to measure how many you've got to decide how much it's going to cost. But what are they measuring? What type of measurement is that? And that's someone trying to prove they're very, very strong. How would you measure those things that he's trying to push up in the air? So your job is to cut out these little pictures and sort them onto that mind map and tell me whether they're measuring length, whether they're measuring temperature, whether they're measuring mass, which remember is the same as weight, or whether they're measuring capacity. So good luck with that.